Why are we here today? We want to demystify the world of branded games for all you lovely people. And we're going to talk in particular about why they're so popular at Christmas time, how they can work for you and your brand. I'm going to be sharing some real life examples, and Cari will be answering any questions that you have.
I'll try my
So,
best.
the session's going to run for approximately 40 minutes, and then we're planning on about 15 to 20 minutes at the end for the Q&A, but we'll let it run on if we have to. And on that note, stick around until the end because we do have a little surprise something for you. Um, but first, questions first. Cari, could you please explain what are branded games?
Yes, thanks, Alistair. So, it's a good place to start. Branded games are essentially digital browser-based games that can be played by your customers, clients, or prospects even, created by companies to promote their brand's products or services. So they're generally engaging, interactive experiences that can be played on desktop, mobile, or a shared device. I guess branded games are a great way for brands or companies to get involved and experiment with gamification.
Great, thank you. And I was going to ask about that because gamification is a buzzword that a lot of us hear these days. Can you explain what the difference is between branded games and gamification?
Yeah, of course, and it is, it's a common misconception as well. So, gamification is a popular term, and that's defined by something that usually uses typical gaming principles in a non-gaming context. So,
Mhm.
things like, and I'm sure you're all aware of things like leaderboards and achievement panels, maybe badges for completing tasks. I know you and me, Alistair, are both big fans of Duolingo, and
Yep.
they do gamification brilliantly. So that is essentially, gamification parts, whereas branded games, I guess, are a light touch version of those more traditional casual games that we know and love. Things like the popular gaming mechanic Candy Crush
Yeah.
or nostalgic games like, Pac-Man. We've developed our own versions of those games that brands can customize and then share, in their marketing as their own.
And then on that point, who are they for? Because we hear a lot about these kind of big consumer brands using games, but I think they apply to more organizations than people maybe realize. So yeah, tell us a little bit who they're for.
Yeah, of course. So it's actually a really long list, and it can be, a misconception that games are played by teenage boys in their bedroom because that is just, I mean, they do. Don't get me wrong. I've got a couple myself, but that's just not the case anymore. It's much wider than that. We've all got a mobile phone in our pocket that is super powerful and can run games. It's become part of our culture now. And in terms of marketing, branded games are being used by marketers from B2B, B2C, internal comms as well. So, and across so many verticals. So, we've worked with some really large consumer brands that I'm sure you will all have heard of, like Kellogg's, Pringles, Nickelodeon, Lloyd's Bank, and large B2B ones as well, like IBM. But it's not just big kind of brands. We've got smaller clients too that work in lots of different industries like financial services and pharmaceuticals, hospitality, tech, travel, and tourism. So I really wasn't joking when I said the list is really long. They can essentially work for anyone who want to engage or convert an audience in a way that's different to the usual tactics.
Okay. So then on the flip side, is there anyone who these branded games are not for, would you say?
That's a really good question, and I guess if I was on, I do a lot of discovery calls. So if disco calls, like we like to call them, we have a little dance sometimes. If I was chatting to somebody, I always ask about their audience
Mhm.
because it's a really important part of understanding the business and who's actually going to be playing these games. Certainly, from a B2B perspective, if someone were to say to me, my campaign is about converting new cold prospect to our C-suite leads, C-suite job titles,
Mm.
I'd maybe err on the side of caution because, as you can imagine, a C-suite audience, and especially a cold one, are time and attention poor. So a game landing in their inbox might not resonate with them quite as much. I mean, you will know your audience better than we do, but we've seen mixed results with that particular kind of audience set. They do work brilliantly at nurturing middle management relationships, and those kind of warm leads.
Okay, great. So that brings us on beautifully to what games are used for. What are the kind of common use cases and objectives that they help marketers to solve? And obviously with a focus on Christmas, because that's why we're here today.
Of course, talking about Christmas and September, like us marketers like to do. So I guess engagement. I mean, I've said it plenty of times already. I mean, we've only been going for about 5 minutes, and I'm sure I've said engagement about 3 times. Engagement is definitely built into the gameplay. When we kind of consider what games we are going to create for our library, engagement is at the heart of it. We really consider mechanics that will bring your audience back to play again and again and again. Some of our games are multi-level, so they really kind of try and make people and those completionists come back to play. So engagement is definitely something that is a great metric for us, and you'll see in the case studies that we're kind of going to go
Yeah.
through later that they really do drive some huge engagement numbers. um, Rewarding customers with prizes. So if we're thinking about a Christmas context, I mean, you might in the past, or your current kind of Christmas campaign might be sending a Christmas card or physical, bottles of wine or physical gifts, for example. We actually had a client come to us a few years ago who they had merged with another company. They'd grown their list so much that doing things in the traditional way, sending out a Christmas card, sending out a gift, had actually become really untenable for them. It was
Mm.
just too expensive. So they came to us to create a Christmas game. And it also had a kind of an advent calendar landing page to it. So it had prizes to win every day. So you would click on that day's prize, play the game, and be entered into the prize draw to win that day's prize. So it was a really nice way to engage people for a prolonged period of time. It's like through the 1st of December, if you wanted to, all the way till the end of December, having something that you can kind of continuously talk to your audience about and really build those connections and then talk to them about it on LinkedIn, is a really nice way to reward those customers that you've already got. And that's the same for staff and suppliers as well, right? Quite often at the end of the year, it's a nice time to say thanks and to kind of do something that's a little bit different, something that's a bit out of the ordinary, and that definitely works with internal teams and suppliers as well. And one of the others, I guess, is it's a great conversion tool.
Mhm.
It can capture data and nurture those leads as well. So used in the right context, great games are really good at converting those. I said earlier, like those warmish
Yeah.
audiences. So, you know, you might have those via existing earned channels like maybe the web traffic or social media, or paid ones like meta ads, remarketing, events. And I'm sure you on this call today are very aware of the sales and marketing model: know, like, and trust. So we talk about that a lot in the office, and we definitely sit very much in the like part of that. We're very aware that nobody's going to buy a product or service just because they played one of your games, right? We can be realistic about that. But they can certainly help to nurture that lead, that relationship, and
Yeah.
keep your brand front of mind and memorable for, when they do want to kind of move on and purchase.
Okay, so then what does that look like? So what's a typical user journey in that kind of that particular lead conversion path? would you say?
Yeah. So, for example, I guess a common problem might be, you've got lots of leads or prospects floating around.
Mhm.
Maybe they're visiting your website, they're on your social channels. I mean, you might have an email address for them, you might not, but they're certainly not engaging or getting in touch. Um, you can use a game in that context, certainly with a campaign around it, a remarketing campaign perhaps, to drive people to play a game and to win a prize. That can be, yeah, a real driver for them to engage and interact with you. So you would drive those leads, prospects, whatever we're calling them, to the game with your campaign. They would play that game through, and in order to get onto the leaderboard, and again, that's one of those really important gaming mechanics, we're a competitive bunch. We want to see where we kind of land against our peers. So to get onto that leaderboard and to be in with a chance to win some sort of prize, perhaps, they need to submit a score.
Mhm.
And that's where the value and the data exchange bit is, right? So you have to ask for a, a name, maybe a company name if you wanted to, and then an email. And then that data is ready for you then to nurture and move down the funnel. And the player has had a great experience and, might well win a prize.
Okay, great. So to play devil's advocate, some people might assume that if you run a branded game campaign, you're only going to get people who like games and they're not really interested in your product or your service. So yeah, can you kind of dispel that myth for us?
Yeah, I like devil's advocate questions. Okay, yeah. So, I mean, that might be the case. You might find somebody that, that is playing your game because they like playing games, but they can actually work a little bit harder for you too. So, you might have products that you're launching. A game can highlight the features or explain the benefits in the fun way. And I guess a good example of that is we've worked with a lot of clients who have adapted our Maze Raider game, for example. So our Maze Raider game is what we call our Pac-Man inspired game. So you can essentially change that hero character, the player character, the typical Pac-Man kind of character, and that can be your customer, right? So you put your customer at the heart of your game. Then the ghosts or the monster enemies can be changed to represent the challenges that they face in their industry. We've had little cyber hackers for cyber security clients before, and my favorite um, was some little angry pencils. They were very cute, and they represented admin and red tape. That was a big challenge for that particular customer. They were really cute, bouncing around the maze. And then there's a power pill, right? In Pac-Man in the
Mhm.
Maze Raider game, which is a collectible that helps the player turn the table on those enemies, helps you overcome them. And that is something that can be brand or product focus. So, you can see from that particular narrative that it can also help to support a wider brand story or a campaign in a fun and different way too. Hopefully that answers that question.
Yes, not comprehensively. And Cari, you mentioned earlier you do most of the discovery calls here at Peek and Poke. So you talk to lots of people about lots of different problems that they have and you try to solve. What are some of the common objections that people have when trying to sell the idea of a game into their business or company?
Yeah, that's also a good question, Alistair. You're coming out with some good ones today.
Got some hot ones, yeah.
I would say that there's probably three things. Budget
Yeah.
maybe being the first one. So I guess there's a preconception that creating a game is going to be expensive.
Mhm.
So the very idea of it can be shot down, before it starts. It's also one of those things that can be quite a new concept to people. So it's easy to do what you've already done,
Yeah.
right? It's there's not much thinking about that. It works, so it's easy to roll that out. But if you're doing something new, that can be, difficult and challenging. So I guess kind of educating people about how easy the process is actually part of what I do. And the fact that actually it doesn't have to cost as much as you might think it does. So yes, creating a game from scratch can be very expensive, and
Yep.
most likely would be very expensive. But if you're utilizing something that already exists, it can absolutely be cost effective, and especially if you don't have to do a great deal to it. So in a Christmas context, we have, a huge library of games that are already Christmas. You don't really have to do a great deal to them. Yeah, that becomes a very cost effective way to kind of to enter that kind of game space, if you like.
Mhm.
Um, so that was number one. Secondly, return on investment, I think, is a big one that, marketers are very concerned with, and rightly so. The people that we speak to can often see the value of doing something that is brand building and creating something that will connect emotionally with your audience, but that's not often enough for budget approval, from the higher ups, for example. So
Mhm.
rightly so, you need to have, tangible results beyond a fun experience. So it is something that we've been working on for recent years, and as many of our clients, they have a dashboard that they can see in real time the results that we're getting. The metrics in there include things like time spent in game, opt-ins to marketing. So those people who have played, who then want to hear more about your products and services. There are click-throughs to landing pages that we can include in your game as well. So we even had an example of one company deliver a company-wide record return on investments, with discount offers on a product that was only available from a link through the game. So they were able to directly attribute, the return on investment from that particular game. So I think that one of the main things to consider when you're thinking about, your measurables and your objectives is, what is important to you? What are you wanting to get out of a game? What
Yeah.
do you want to achieve? Is it, you know, converting to known leads? Is it marketing signups? Is it app downloads, or maybe table booking at restaurants? If we have an idea of what you're trying to achieve, we can certainly help and advise and flesh out, in the brief, the way that we can help you manage that, and create a game that will deliver what you need.
Okay. So we've got,
I think
yeah,
there was a third one. There was a third
we've
one.
had
So I
budget and
think,
ROI. Is there a third
yes, there
common
was a
objection
third
to you?
one. Time. Time is something that people worry about, I think, especially, if it's something new that they've never done before. They don't really know how quickly it can be. And the truth is, it can be super quick. If you were building something from scratch, you'd probably have to give yourself at least 6 months to a year,
Mhm.
maybe. But using something that already exists, we've had clients turn things around in an afternoon. I mean, we say that's not ideal. Give yourself a couple of
Yeah,
weeks so
certainly
that
not what
nobody's
you
stressing about it. But it's certainly possible. And then, if you're wanting something that has a little bit more customization to it, you would want to give yourself maybe 4 to 6 to 8 weeks, depending on what those customizations
Mhm.
are. So, it's not as um, you don't have to plan ahead quite as much as people might think. So yeah, I think that covers off most of them.
Yeah, no, great, thank you. And something we talk about a lot at Peek and Poke is the importance of promotion. So there's the game itself,
Mm.
but tell us how important it is to promote it properly through all your different channels.
Oh, super important. We can't stress this enough. It's, you want as many people to play this game as possible, right? So it's so important. Like everything else in marketing, it's not a marketing magic bullet on its own. I really wish that it was. But it is important that, we're considering a promotional plan to it. Usually people can send it out via email,
Mhm.
and not just once, send it out regularly, consistently talk about it, have a link on your website or on a landing page, organic social, paid social. if you can get the right mix of messaging and channels, getting it to the right people at the right place at the right time, that is key, and you can see some great results. We've recently had a client actually who is in the hospitality sector, and their objective, going back to that kind of important part of the puzzle, was to get more app downloads and with the other kind of campaigns that they were doing in the past compared to a social campaign that had a game attached to it. So the message was download our app, play games to win prizes.
Mhm.
Their acquisition cost dropped 88% from $15 to £1.70 per download, which is phenomenal, really. So
Huge.
yeah, exactly. Get it right, and it can really, really work well, which is why it's so important that we think about how a game fits into a campaign
Yeah.
from the beginning, and it's not just an afterthought.
Hmm. And another thing we talk a lot about is prizes, the importance of prizes and the competition element. So, um, tell us a little bit about how important prizes are in the success of a game campaign.
Yeah, definitely. It's sometimes it's not possible because we've had clients in the banking sector that just aren't able to kind of give prizes away, and that's fine. There's ways that we can deal with that, but if you're not hamstrung by that kind of rule, having a prize is just an extra motivator for somebody to share their details and to play and to get involved. It's that kind of value exchange beyond playing a fun game, like what's in it for them.
Yeah.
So that's something that we kind of, yeah, that we definitely bring up quite early on in the process. Have you considered your prize structure? What does that mechanic look like? We often say, if you're running a prize campaign with a leaderboard, make sure that it is a free prize draw as well, so that everybody who is on the leaderboard has an equal chance to win. Now, it's very easy when you're running a game campaign to consider, oh, well, let's reward the top spot. That's a natural thing to think because it's a kind of like a competitive piece. But actually, that might put some people off. Some people might come to it and go, oh my God, that's a huge score. There's
Mhm.
no way I'm beating that. There's no point in me trying. So do a free prize draw. It's the fairest way to do it. So that's definitely one thing that we would advise. And there's different mechanics that we can advise you on, depending on what game you've got. And we can go through those in some of the case studies that we've got as well.
Absolutely. And just at this point, Christina's going to be happy with me. We are running a Christmas competition right now where we're giving away branded Peek and Poke t-shirts, and you also have the chance to win an iPad. So that's running throughout this month. Um, we'll share a link to that in a follow-up email so you can all play for the chance to win. Okay, so
Well
let's.
done. You'll get some brownie points for that, Alistair.
I know Christina's going to be really happy about that. Case studies, success stories. Let's have a look at some of the things our clients have done in the past. I'm going to start with QuickFit, who I'm sure most of you are aware of, UK-based automotive company. We've done quite a few games with QuickFit, haven't we?
We have. They're a recurring client of ours. They come back, most Christmases because they get such great results from it. This one in particular was one that we did last year, I think,
Yep.
and it was a festive conga game. So in our um, in our library, there's lots of different games that you can choose from. This one is based on, if anybody is old enough to remember, the Nokia phones with snake on them. So, you could navigate a map, make your snake longer. This is kind of based off of that. We've got lots of different versions of this. We've got like an office party one, we've got a Christmas workshop one, and that's the one that QuickFit chose to kind of tailor and to customize
Yep.
to their particular workshops. So, we did a map which looked like their centres. There was the kind of carport bit. I think there's a little bit which has the waiting room in it. So you would navigate around, collect customers, collect the Quick Fit staff in their little boiler suits, collect presents. And one of the things that is important for Quick Fit as well is to kind of talk about their products and services. So you could go and collect, I think you can see them there, like a little service battery. There's a wheel there for tires and that kind of thing, just to reinforce, all the different kind of products and services that they do as well. So those icons reflect what they've got on their website as well. So they sent this out to they have dual audiences for this, I think. So they have a version for their customers, and they also have a version for staff with a different kind of prize mechanic to it because their staff love it so much. So I think they had a big prize for everybody on the leaderboard, which was something like a games console, like a
Yeah.
PS5. Yeah. And then as you kind of increased your score, there was discounts that you could claim for your next order as well. So I think they had a 5% off and a 10% off if you kind of got over certain score criterias. Again, going back to what I was saying earlier about trying to increase that engagement and keep people coming back for more. That's all part of that process. So they send it out through their usual channels. They have promoted social, organic paid. They have influencers as well that kind of share it on their channels, and internal staff were playing this one as well. So
Mhm.
yeah, the results that they get are always great. So people were playing it on average 22 times per player. They had a 36% marketing opt-in rate. So, of those people who've played it, 36% want to learn more about the marketing and everything that they offer. So kind of carrying on that conversation. And there's a 20 minutes average player engagement time there for B2C. That is quite incredible, really, to have people engaging with the game, in a digital way when our attention spans are so fast these days. We can barely kind of read an email, can we?
I know. Tell me about it. Okay, great. So that was Quick Fit. Another big household name, I'm sure most of you have heard of, is Molten Brown. We did a game for them last Christmas, is that right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, we did. So Molten Brown came to us. They have used games before in the space. Obviously, I'm sure most of you are aware they're kind of, luxury soaps and perfumes, and gifts company. They've made games before in the past with great success, but they wanted something that was a little bit more on brand, wanted to include more products. So their kind of hero product for that Christmas campaign was their perfume range. So we had little bottles of perfume that you could unwrap as you kind of went through the game. They utilized our match three mechanic, which is essentially like Candy Crush. So we know that this would resonate really well with a heavily female leaning audience. So you can see it's got a really nice, we really worked with them to make sure that this was looking and feeling very much like part of their Christmas campaign materials. So very luxury. It kind of felt like a gift box in itself. You had this really nice ribbon running down the side, which was the timer, and then people had to match a variety of either Christmas icons, or kind of product kind of related elements in there as well. This is a 10 level game, highly engaging. And in a similar way to Quick Fit, they had £500 worth of products to give away to a winner on the leaderboard, which was a free prize draw. But they also had discount codes, single use discount codes that people could then claim as they went through the levels. So if you got to level 5 and level 7, I think there was extra kind of prizes that you could win, and these discount codes as well. What was quite nice about this one, it was quite a big game. So it was deployed across 7 markets across the world, with local teams leading their own promotions as well. So there was a lot of moving parts with this one. But the results that they got from it was, I mean, phenomenal. So
Yeah.
63% marketing opt-in rate, and that was one of their kind of most important metrics. Um, 66 plays per player. So this is
On
a
average.
on average, exactly, which is incredible. So I think some people were coming back to play it more than 15 times or something as well.
Yeah.
It's absolutely incredible. Um, and we've worked that out as 11 years total brand engagement time from 3.6 million total games played, which is, those figures are insane, aren't they?
Yeah. Am I right in thinking this was record breaking for us?
It
Even.
was, I mean,
Yeah.
we had to check these figures like about 5 times, going, really?
Yeah.
Can that be right? And yeah, it absolutely was. They've been triple checked, which is just phenomenal. So it just
Yeah.
goes to show, if you can find the right game for the right audience and get it in front of them, it can be really impressive.
But it's not just big household names who use games.
No, it's not.
We have various, case studies on the website for B2B brands, one of which is Multipipe, who did a game last Christmas with our recently launched, well, last year, Santa Go skiing game.
Yes, this is a really cute game. It launched last year. So Multipipe are a B2B kind of plumbing services, and supplies um, company. They have done a few kind of our ready to go, off the shelf games, to deploy to their audience, over the past few years, I'd say. They certainly do a game every Christmas to thank their trade customers and test new kind of lead generation and where they can kind of get more emails. um, so this one is essentially, you buy it online, you can add your logo to it, you can change some aspects within the game. So you can add your logo, you can see they've got Multipipe on the hoardings at the start of the game, and then Santa, essentially. It's a really lovely game. It's a little bit like Horace Goes Skiing, if anybody remembers that. It's quite twitchy, it's mobile based, but you can play it on desktop as well, where you kind of, you're sending Santa down the slopes and he has to collect presents and mince pies and stars along the way and avoid things like trees. And I think there's a snowman in there that turns you into a Yeti as well, which I've never been able to collect. So that's quite a nice little Easter egg in that game. So they promote them, via landing pages, email, social, and they put it in their team signature as well. So when they're kind of speaking to their customers, when their sales team are speaking to their customers, it's something that they can kind of have a bit of fun with, and call out and see if they can, beat their score as well. And this one, it just works so well for them. It's a great little bit of fun, at the end of the year. Again, they did a nice prize at the end, to kind of, get people to submit their scores. And the results for this one, I think, yeah, nearly 5,000 games played, which was great for them. That's exactly, it's a small kind of audience.
Yeah.
27 games per player on average, which
On
is,
average.
yeah, which is incredible. And 25 minutes average player engagement time as well. So it's just a really nice way to spend time with the brand, at the end of the year, do something fun, but it can also drive those kind of metrics for you as well.
Mhm. And that's just a handful of the case studies. We've got plenty more on the website. If you go to peekandpoke.com, you can find all those. Right, I do believe it's time for our Q&A. So if anyone has a question, feel free to drop it in that Q&A box, and Christina will surely get the information to me somehow. Um, right, let's start with Kirsty. So Kirsty has asked, how would this work for B2B companies in the public sector space where we are selling consultancy services, not products, with 18-month to 2-year life cycles? What ways can gaming be used across web, email, or platforms with our clients?
That's a really good question, and we understand that kind of life cycle. It is sometimes things can take a long time. We totally get that. I think where you could certainly utilize games is definitely at key moments in the year.
Yeah.
Things like Christmas, things like big sporting events,
Mhm.
Halloween, any moments where you can latch onto to add a little bit of something extra to your campaign. So if you're, sending out something at Christmas anyway, having a fun game on there it's like the cherry on the top. That's what we like to call it. It's that extra little bit that can just tip it over the edge and make a good campaign, a great campaign. And while it might not convert into customers for you immediately, again, going back to that know, like, and trust bit, it can
Mhm.
certainly help you to nurture those relationships and have something, fun to talk about rather than just services as well. So I think that's where I would advise you to try something first because it can be quite cost effective. It doesn't. You can have a Christmas game for under £1,000. So yes, that's where I would urge you to start, Kirsty. I hope that helps.
Okay, great. And we've probably covered some of this already, but Amber asks, how well do they work for B2B? What differences do you see in terms of engagement and success for sectors in B2B? Smiley face.
Yes, I like a smiley face. Yes, I mean we have lots of B2B clients. It's definitely not just for B2C, and typically across the board. I mean that Molton Brown example is a
Mm.
bit of an outlier because it was such a wide game across multiple markets. But we do see huge engagement with B2B audiences purely because it's something different. I think it's a surprise for people.
Yeah.
And we talk a lot about that in marketing as well, don't we? That kind of trying to find something that can surprise or delight an audience. And that's certainly where games can help. And we've got lots of examples of B2B companies. So maybe Amber, if you want to get in touch afterwards, let us know what industry you're in, and we can send you some examples, and we can have a chat about it.
Yeah, great. Now, Cara, there's three questions here, so I'll go through them one by one. First question from Cara is, how are they created? And I'm not expecting you're not a developer, but you can maybe quickly run through how do we make these things?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I am not a developer in the slightest. I know enough to be dangerous, as they like to say. But they're HTML5 games, so they're browser-based games essentially. And we work on a licensing model. So our games we've got a library of games that you can choose from. You can very simply just add a logo to it, change the copy, and off you go. You can run it for a period of time, or you can change characters, change platforms, change collectibles, again for a certain amount of time. So the kind of game belongs to us, and then you can layer over the top of it for the campaign length. So hopefully that answers how they're created. Don't
That's
ask me to go into more technical
You and I
detail.
are not the technical people at peek&poke. Um, but yes, you can always get in touch if you'd like to find out more. How do they capture audiences? We've probably covered that a little bit already, but
Yeah, I think so. I think, they're something that's a bit different, aren't they? And in terms of converting those audiences, I guess that's the data capture element, right? Which is part of the competition, part of the submitting your score to the leaderboard part. If you've got any more questions about that, Cara, to follow up with, please do let us know.
and then the third question from Cara is an interesting one. Is it a platform we can use to receive donations for our charity?
Ah, interesting. So we have worked with clients before who have managed kind of a charity donation element. So not quite a platform where you can ask directly for donations, but we've worked in partnerships with larger companies who have then had a charity that they're supporting, and we've been able to put, you know, the more people play, the more we'll donate to this particular charity. We can send you some examples of what that looks like, but it has a totalizer on the front of the game, on the kind of the game screen, so you can see as people are playing that kind of value is ticking up. And of course, it can be capped in the back end, but that's how we've worked with a kind of a charity aspect before. I suppose there's always the opportunity to have um, links out from a game as
Mhm.
well. So there's what we call a thank you panel, which is essentially a call to action panel at the end of playing a game, which you could then send people to, make a donation if they wanted to.
Great. Hopefully that answers your questions, Cara. Next up is Steve, who's asking, how can games address a potential serious or boring subject, brackets to some? We are marketing our CSR services, so that's corporate social responsibility.
Yes. So I think I think it's about understanding exactly what it is you're trying to achieve with what you're doing, and the messages that you want to incorporate. So that's where I would start, I think, just to kind of get to the heart of the messages that we want to get across. And then we might be able to find a game that already exists that we can quite easily adapt to kind of incorporate that message, like I mentioned earlier with the Maze Raider example, being able to kind of switch characters and bend the narrative of a game. That is definitely something that we can adapt. There are lots of things that you can do in terms of, again, having moments in the year where actually you're just stepping away from the subject and kind of taking it from a perspective of what's happening around you in the wider world.
Mhm.
But there's also ways that we can incorporate messages into the game. So quite a lot of our clients who have, in the tailored space where they're adapting more and more of the customizations of the game, we can include marketing messages in between levels. So if there's something that you want to call out, in between levels, once they've played level 1 before they get to level 2, we can just have a little pop-up that says, did you know this, that, and the other, whatever that looks like. But there are places within the game that we can do that. We're very mindful that we don't want to get in the way of gameplay, because there is nothing more annoying than having an ad pop up when you're in the middle of doing something. So it's very considered where that message goes. But yeah, that's something that we can definitely have a chat about, Steve.
Great. Slightly different subject. Jocelyn's asking, how can you integrate games into booths at trade shows?
Yes. This is a big part of our business, actually. And we go to our own trade shows as well. We go to our own events and trade shows and take our games, as do many of our clients. So um, they can absolutely help to, convert those delegates into people who are physically engaged with your brand on your stand, because games are fun, right? They have a real presence to them, certainly if it's on a shared device. So how many people, how many clients of ours kind of present them on a stand or a trade show booth would be either on an iPad or on a big screen, where you run a competition, you invite delegates to come and play. It's a much easier icebreaker to say, hey, do you want to come and play a game to win something, win a prize, rather than, can I tell you about our latest product offering? It's just much more fun, and you're much likely to get, higher footfall on your stand with something like that. We have arcade cabs as well, like the proper retro arcade gaming kind of cabs that you might have seen in an arcade center before. We can put a game in there, we can brand it all up, so it has some real nice a nice presence to it, and they are like you can really see the big kids when you kind of have one of those on your stand, because they're like moths to a flame. So yeah, lots of ways that we can do that. And we've got so much material and examples of how people have integrated games into their booths as
I was
well,
just
Jocelyn.
about to say there's lots of case studies. You can visit our blog as well, where we talk about like the trade show setup options. Um, yeah, the website's full of pictures to see how different people have done it. Um, Now back to Christmas. Juskaran, I hope I pronounced your name right. Looking for examples in how Christmas games have been used with account-based marketing, but with a low budget and still yielding high impact, drive engagement and conversion, such as book a demo. Um, that's something we can do with games, I believe.
Yes,
Thank you,
yeah.
panel and something,
So,
but
yeah, for sure, absolutely. That's what I was going to say as well. So, like I mentioned, we've got that kind of call to action kind of panel, which we call a thank you panel at the end of gameplay. So we have actually seen people, direct people to take action at the end of playing a game. So brilliant. Thanks so much for playing. I hope you enjoy it. Now do this. So sending them to a landing page to book a demo is definitely something that you could incorporate, out of the gate with the ready to go game off the shelf.
great. Now Shannon asks, is there a way of making games that look like they went through a lot of effort but didn't?
That's a great question. And I think that's what we do really well.
That sums up what we
Um,
do.
Absolutely, because creating good games is really hard. It does take a lot of effort. Um, so the way that we used to do this back in the day, we used to make games bespoke to a brand, to their brief, and it would take a long time and it would cost a lot of money. Doing it this way means that you don't have to go into that kind of the game development dark hole, which it absolutely can be. It can take a long time. Most of our games have taken at least 600 hours,
Yeah,
to create, and that means that you get something that is proven, that looks polished, and that all you have to do is add a logo and change the messaging to it. And if you need to do any more tweaks, you absolutely can. All of our games, all of our products on the website have play now demos as well, so you can actually physically play it and see what you're going to get and what your audience will be playing. And I think you'd agree that they do look like a lot of effort has gone into them. And for you, it would be very simple to just add a logo to it.
yeah. And one of the things we've worked on in recent years is adding more kind of in-game branding opportunities, and they're
Yeah.
all a little bit different. You'd have to play the different demos to see, but yeah, we've kind of worked on that, so it looks like your own kind of game.
Yeah, for sure. Wherever you play a demo and it says your brand here,
Yeah,
that's where you can kind of customize it from a ready to go perspective. And then, of course, if you wanted to customize it some more, well, that's definitely something that we can
yeah,
talk about as well.
great. And I believe this is the last question from Elaine. She's asking about digital advent calendars, and is that something we do?
Well, yes, it is. It's definitely something that we do. I think I mentioned it earlier on about a client that managed their Christmas campaign like that, where you have a landing page, which is a Christmas calendar with daily prizes. You can either send people to, a landing page, another landing page, or a game or a video. So that is definitely something that is a product of ours. Um, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Alistair, that might be our special offer today.
Yes. Well, that brings us nicely onto what we were wanting to offer you all. So throughout the month of September, we are giving you a free digital advent calendar and a free designer's vector asset pack with any ready to go Christmas game. And those things are usually worth £500. So that's a huge, huge offer. Cari, could you maybe talk us through what those things are? I know you've covered advent calendars there. The designer's vector asset pack, people probably don't know what that is straight off the bat.
Yes, yeah, that's a good question. So that's essentially, so you would be getting a game, right? That's already done. It already has kind of Christmas assets in it. It has already got characters in it. If you want to then create a campaign around that, take some of those characters out of the game, pull things apart a little bit, to rebuild them for emails or a landing page or social media kind of posts where you can kind of create marketing assets to go and help promote the game. That's what that is. So generally, it's an added on um, value to when you're kind of buying your game. But yeah, I think it's a pretty decent offer to have £500 worth of
Yeah.
free stuff.
And if we do have a live demo of the digital advent calendar on the website as well, so you could go and find that under our like branded game section. You'd find product page there, and you can see the live demo. Just if that still sounds confusing to you, but yeah, how might someone go about this? Would they get in touch? Maybe book a discovery call with yourself, Cari?
I think so. I
Yeah.
think that's the plan. So if you've got any more questions for
Mhm.
me, and want to talk about your particular use case, your particular, industry and how it can be utilized, get in touch. I'm more than happy to do a disco call, so we can have a chat about your particular use case. And then if you wanted to, move forward, well, then you can take part in this offer.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't have to.
No,
I'm happy to chat regardless.
Cari does this all day long. We sit next to each other in the office. We're both at home today, but yeah, we sit next to each other in the office, and she's talking all the time. She does this
All the
all day
time.
long.
I love it. It's my
Very good at
favorite.
what she does. So yeah, you can book a discovery call quite easily via our website if this is something you'd be interested in. And yeah, that I think wraps up
I'm just
the
going to
webinar.
interject there
Go
because
on.
I have just had a quick look in the Q&A,
Oh.
to see if there were any other questions in there, because obviously we've been struggling with the chat today.
Yeah, sorry about that, by the way.
Um, that's okay. It's one of those things, isn't it? Right. So we've got a question from Anonymous. Can you use an Amazon Kindle device if utilizing on an exhibition stand? Okay, that's a good question. What we always say to our clients who are going to events is please test the demo on any device that you're planning to use on the game, on your trade show stand. We can absolutely recommend iPads. We know they work. We have a supplier that we work with, that can also kind of supply touchscreens that we know work. They've got some smaller ones, some kind of middling ones, and then some really big ones. So Amazon Kindle, I suspect it might work. I don't know. Not all touchscreens are created equal, and it does depend on the software and everything else that you have on there. We have lots of setup guides and advice on what you need to do to get your game to work on your device. It's very easy to follow, and we're always on hand as well. But nobody, absolutely nobody, wants a surprise of something not working on the day of the event. So all we would say in that case is please test it, and we can send demos, that are set up in trade show mode so that you can try on the device that you're planning to use. I hope that answers that question. We've also got one from Liz Forshaw. Hello, Liz. What level of engagement have games had with older 70 plus demographic? I'm sure I'd be able to find something that can help answer that question. I don't know off the top of my head, um, but I can have a look. I know that we've got some clients who do have, audiences, that are in that particular demographic. We have worked with John Lewis, in the past. They have got a partners platform, which is essentially a platform for all of their partners, both who are currently working and those who have retired as well. And there's a game in there which they can kind of come to and play. So I can certainly have a dig around and see if I can find some examples. So if you want to get in touch, Liz, or we might be able to get in touch with you anyway, I'm guessing, Alistair,
Mhm.
um, um, we can answer that question for you.
Yes. And I hope we've answered everything there. If you do
I
have a
think
question that we've not
so.
seen, we're trying our best. Feel free to just get in touch. We're always happy to chat. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining today and for listening to us go on about games for an hour. Yeah, if you'd like to learn more, book a discovery call, and Cari is more than likely going to be the person chatting to you at the other end. Um, so yes, we'll hopefully see you soon. Thank you again for joining.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.